I was wrong about Deadpool and Wolverine, and here's why. I've been seeing so many things about this movie. Some people really love it. Some people really hate it. It's kind of polarizing. Unfortunately for me, I find myself somewhere in the middle. I think there is a lot to like about it, though. In fact, there are some things about this I genuinely like a lot more than the other two. But I was surprised at how heartfelt and genuine a lot of this movie was. In fact, the whole message of the movie is about Ryan Reynolds and his love for this specific character, but not just this character, all superhero characters from Fox and Disney. In fact, there's big parts of this movie that are dedicated and devoted to these misunderstood characters who just wish they could be important. And that's the ultimate thematic of this movie, is the quest to feel important, which so many people in our everyday lives strive for anyway. That's a actually really basic human need, is the feeling or drive to be important. And this deals with that in many ways that I was surprised by. Wolverine's character is the worst Wolverine, similar to how Everything Everywhere All at Once dealt with this character who's bad at everything becoming the superhero, this great, important person.
如果有来生，我还是会选择和你一起报税，开始一点。
And Wolverine's character is much the same. He failed his universe, so many people died because of him, and so he's just this drunk alcoholic guy who is self-destructive. And I found that character kind of interesting for such a noble, what we think of as a noble character.
He's a hero in my world. Yeah, well, he ain't shit in mine.
And then Deadpool himself has completely stopped being a superhero. He broke up with his girlfriend. He's struggling with his own self-conscious, his self-image. He wants to be an Avenger, but he fails. He wants to be an X-Men, but he fails. He's struggling with this sense of importance that he's yearning for. And this opportunity arises where he can save his universe and become important. He calls himself Marvel Jesus, because Deadpool is Deadpool. But that message of importance, of feeling important, is palpable throughout the whole film. In fact, there's many cameos in this movie from older characters, like Channing Tatum's Gambit makes a comeback. Spoilers. Elektra's back, Blade's back, X-23 is back, Johnny Storm's back, just to name a couple. And each one of these characters is kind of struggling with that identity of feeling lost. And a great part of this movie takes place in something called the Void, which is apparently this limbo area where cast-outs, rejects get sent by the people upstairs that view them as lesser than. They just throw them in the dump, forget about them, cast them aside, and many of those characters that had failed movies or failed attempts at solo spin-off things are in the void. They're being cast away because these big studios don't care about them. They didn't make them the money, they weren't well received, so they're thrown aside. And a lot of those characters make a resurgence in this, and the movie does a good job of giving them their time in the sun in a way that is actually kind of interesting. It does feel like this movie, and Ryan Reynolds to an extent, wants to give these characters a proper send-off, because Deadpool in X-Men Origins was cast aside much the same way that many of these other characters were, especially from X-Men Origins, like Gambit or Sabretooth, which makes an appearance. Gambit has some scenes that are pretty fun. Channing Tatum's hilarious in it. Elektra has some scenes that are pretty fun. Blade has some scenes that are pretty fun. X-23 does some fun stuff, and not saying that she had a bad movie or anything, but all these characters are given kind of a proper send-off because Fox is gone, Disney has acquired the rights, and these characters probably are going to be relegated to the void. So it is kind of nice and heartfelt to see that they care about these rejects in this movie, because it is a movie about the rejects. Deadpool was a reject. For a long time, they couldn't get the movie made. It took years and years and years. It took years and years from Deadpool 2 even, and that was a successful film. And that's all capped very nicely with some kind of fun little BTS post-credit scenes where we get to see these characters, these actors behind the scenes of their movies, having fun, having a good time, and showing how fun it is to make these movies. Even though the movies can be miserable at times, they made real connections, and that's how this movie got made. Now, does it come across a little bit fan servicey and a little bit like, here's another cameo, check this out, here's big booming music, whoa, this guy's in the movie? Yes, it definitely feels like that. It does feel pandering, it does feel like it's fan service, but there is also kind of a snarky, smug part that Ryan Reynolds brings to it. Like, he knows that this is a big deal. He knows that these characters are like gonna make people go crazy, so we're gonna put this crazy music over top, we're gonna put this booming electronic over top, and we're gonna make it kind of funny with meow samples in the music for some reason. And I don't love that. I don't love that. I'm kind of 50-50 on the actual thematics of it because of that, and it does affect the rest of the film too. That kind of snarky attitude I just didn't really connect with. And in fact, I found the movie so snarky, I myself became snarky and made a quick list of 10 things that I expected to see out of this, and every time they got referenced, I'd add a tally mark to it. Now, it's probably not completely accurate, but here's the final scores. Pretty out of control on a couple. I think Deadpool for a lot of people is exactly what this list shows. Over the top, excessive, and that's what they want. They want that in-your-face humor. They want that smug, snarky, 16-year-old, I'm gonna say the F word just because it's funny type of humor, because it is so over the top, it is so in your face. I mean, there's literally one scene where Deadpool grabs the camera and starts screaming at Fox and smashing his head against the lens. It's way too much. 2 or 3, maybe 4 at most fourth wall breaks is more than enough, but having them all throughout the film gets completely exhausting. When Deadpool's looking at the camera, every other line, it feels like, that kind of lessens the impact of the joke.
Want to talk about what's haunting you, or should we wait for a third act flashback?
I am soaking wet right now.
Big slow motion action sequence.
Give the people what they came for.
Get your spectral sock out, nerds.
Disney brought him back. They're gonna make him do this till he's 90.
Want to do some cocaine?
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
Have him do it one time at a really sharp moment, and it would bring the house down. But once he's done it for the 7th time, it's no longer funny anymore. Deadpool just throws things at the wall and hopes it sticks. And that's why the comedy has never really worked for me, because it is just too much, too excessive, and too repetitive at times. I mean, that many fourth wall breaks is out of control to the point where it's just not fun. That many Disney references is out of control to the point where it's not fun. And I get the point of the character of Deadpool is to be moderately annoying. And you can do that without being this excessive. I believe you can. I believe that they can be more creative with their jokes, with their repetition. I believe you can be more creative than referencing Ryan Reynolds multiple times. I believe you can be more creative than referencing Coke multiple times. It's just not funny after the first 8 times.
Want to do some cocaine?
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
What about Bolivian marching powder?
They know all the slang terms. They have a list.
Even snowboarding?
Even disco dust.
White girl interrupted?
Even Forrest Bump.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yes! I can.
And I know Ryan Reynolds and the staff here is creative, and they can be good writers, but it feels like they're playing down to what they should be doing. Especially now with Disney owning this property, it's really starting to feel like they're just pandering to the audience and kind of cleaning it up for a mainstream appeal. Now, of course, it's still Deadpool, so you still get a lot of gore, and you still get a lot of swearing. I should have put, like, dick jokes on this list. That would have been out of control. It would have blown all the other ones out of the water. So it still has that kind of Deadpool charm, but it's missing the edge now. And even the action feels a little bit stale. And I don't know if that's the Disney thing saying, we need a fight scene now. We need a fight scene here. We need a fight scene here. Make sure it happens. Because a lot of the fight scenes don't feel like they matter. I mean, the very first fight scene of the film is fun because he's fighting these people with the bones of Logan, which kind of feels metaphorical in itself. And he's doing this little dance and the choreography's fun. And it oozes care to some degree. They put the effort in to make fun fight choreography. They put the effort in to have dance choreography. But they didn't put the effort into the camera work, and they didn't put the effort into thinking about what the action meant. Because as soon as the action's over, the whole point of it was to get Deadpool captured, and then he kills everybody, and he still gets captured. So it doesn't feel as if that action really mattered. In fact, he just kind of walks into the place and is like, yeah, I'm here, okay. Let's go. And the guy goes, you killed a bunch of guys. That was not very nice of you. And then the movie just continues. So that whole action scene is just a bunch of body count numbers without any real consequence. And then there's another fight later on where Deadpool and Wolverine are fighting in a minivan, poking each other's buttons about what they know is going to set them off. And then they fight, and then somebody just gets in the car and then drives them away. And as you could see, by the way I'm describing it, there isn't forward momentum. It's a lot of, and then this happens.
We can take these beats, which are basically the beats of your outline, and if the words and then belong between those beats, you're f***ed, basically. you got something pretty boring.
The only real action scene that feels like it matters is when they're trying to get Juggernaut's helmet. People are actually fighting for their lives. There's a point to it. There's a climax to it. There's a reason for the fight to happen. And then after that, they have to fight through a bunch of Deadpools. And then Peter shows up, and then they decide that they don't want to fight anymore. And it feels completely pointless. It's just a 5-minute filler action scene. Fun, yes, because it's a big, long one take, and it's really fun, and you could tell they put a lot of choreography into it and a lot of time into it, and then it just doesn't feel like it amounts to anything. And that's the ultimate problem with the movie overall. Despite its world-ending, multiverse-threatening stakes, it doesn't feel as if those stakes really matter. And that's a problem that recent Marvel has really been struggling with, because we just don't really care about any of these characters. If you haven't seen the other two Deadpool, the entire catalyst of the film, Deadpool saving his friends, won't matter to you, because they spend absolutely no time with his friends. They have one scene at a dinner party where you get like one-liners for each character, so you kind of know what they're supposed to be. But if you're just watching this film, why would you care about them? I certainly didn't. You have to care about them because they're all going to die, because this universe is going to die. I'm like, okay, and so what? And then the villain shows up, and she's supposed to destroy all the multiverses to like reset the timeline to make it so that there's no multiverse crap, and she doesn't do anything? I don't even know why she's a villain. She's in the void, and she just kills people for the fun of it, and then gets out, and then starts destroying a reality, and then explodes? Lots of and thens. Like, I just don't understand her character. I just don't understand the stakes. I just don't understand why I should care.
Boys are so silly.
Comedy doesn't work for me. The story doesn't work for me. The action doesn't even work for me. It's just not that pleasant of an experience. And that's all capped off with the main character being the most unpleasant of all of them. Yes, they tried to be more heartfelt with this character. They tried to give him more depth, but when he's right next to Hugh Jackman, who's emoting and giving this great performance and has depth and has this alcoholism and self-destructive quality you want to know more about, it feels like Deadpool is left on the sideline almost. He wants to save a universe because he likes people that we barely know. But Hugh Jackman lost everything, and now we're seeing the repercussions and the growth from losing everything. And ultimately, just like the second one, this movie doesn't seem to matter. The second one completely destroyed its own story by going back in time and stopping its story from happening. The entire crux of the second film is that Deadpool's girlfriend gets killed, and he goes on a revenge spree and tries to find the meaning of his life without her. And then he just goes back in time and stops her from dying, effectively rendering Deadpool 2 completely useless. So effectively, we're just back to square one again. Deadpool now wants to be a hero, even though he, for some reason, didn't at the start. And Hugh Jackman's Wolverine wants to be a hero, even though he didn't at the start. But aside from that, both timelines that are referenced in this are still safe. Wesley Snipes is probably not coming back. Most of these actors that have cameos or small bit parts in this are probably never going to come back as these characters again. So this is their last hurrah, and their last hurrah is in a movie with maybe 2 scenes that actually have consequence to them. It's just really disappointing to have these characters finally done justice in a movie that does nothing else right. I'm really disappointed that this film came out like this. I'm really disappointed that the plot is so flimsy. I'm really disappointed that the comedy is so repetitive. And I'm really disappointed that the action almost has no weight at all. I don't want to see any more. I don't know why anybody would, other than to just hang out with Deadpool for another 2 hours. That's the only reason I could see anybody enjoying this, is if you like this character that they've created that's not even necessarily faithful to the comics as he was written originally, then you might enjoy it.